Why do people find themselves in abusive situations with narcissists and sometimes borderlines? And find themselves indicates that you have no power and control. I found myself in this bad situation. Found yourself means that you couldn't help yourself, that you relinquished all control. I was listening to Dr. Ramani, who I love her. I need to listen to her more. I've listened to a couple of her videos and they're so good. But I was listening to a live with her on Psych to Go, and she said something that I agreed with and something that I sort of disagreed with. She said that we need to stop badgering people who are in abusive situations, telling them to just get out of it and get over it and stop doing that and stop being in that situation. And why aren't you moving? And why are you letting people abuse you in that way? And be more kind, be better listeners, be understanding. I 1000% agree with her on one hand that we do need to be better listeners. I am a guilty party of that one because I've seen people in toxic situations, and the first instinct is get out. If there's fire, you're not going to stay in the fire. If you do, the fire is going to spread. You need to find an exit. So it's really coming from a state of emergency. So on one hand, I understand they need to be heard. They need to be listened to. The piece that I will add to that is I understand that it is extremely difficult to be in a toxic, abusive situation. It's easier said than done. It can be dangerous. It can be treacherous. The person is being beat down to the core mentally. When you are in that state, you're in survival mode. You have shut down. A lot of times the victim does not have the energy to fight. But the problem, and it seems like no one hears me when I say this. The problem is there's the fire that is spreading. It is not being placed under a bucket of water. So what happens when fire is not squelched? It doesn't stop. So if the person stays in the situation, they're going to get injured. And even if somehow they get to safety, if they stay in that fire for too long, they're going to get burned. Even if they end up surviving it, it's going to do damage. So my mind is in emergency state. Get out of the situation. Does that work? It doesn't. The person just continues to stay. So you end up wasting your energy, your time. You're freaking out for them. Here's the other problem I have with people staying in toxic situations. They bring a lot of people down with them. So it's not just them that they're bringing down, it's the people that they're repeatedly telling, this person did this to me. This person did that to me. I'm in this toxic work environment. I'm in a bad relationship. I keep having conversations with my mother or my father, and they keep abusing me. They keep talking down to me, putting me down. Every time I go over to visit, there's a fight. There's abuse taking place. The problem is they take down the people who are having to listen to that over and over. So now you're creating a trail of victims, and we're not taking action. We're not taking responsibility. We're not trying to get ourselves out of the situation. But when you put that type of energy into your loved ones, to your friends, to your colleagues, that's hard for them to take also. It's hard for them to step back and only give you the positives, which the positives are needed and they work. The validation, they do work to a great extent. That could be the key to giving them the strength to get out of the situation. So I understand Dr. Ramani's point, and I really try my best to do that as well. But we got to look at the other side of that. There's a lot of damage being done. And then when you tell the person, you try to get them to figure out how to find peace in the situation, in the toxic situation? How are you going to protect yourself? How are you going to save yourself? How are you going to feel better? What can you do? They don't want to shift either. They don't want to shift into, you know what? I'm going to take a trip to Hawaii with my friends and I'm going to have a good time. You know what? I like coloring. So I'm going to sit in my room and I'm going to color in this coloring book. Or I like baking and selling my treats to people. They often don't do the things that they enjoy doing because they're sitting around waiting for Mr. or Mrs. Toxic to finally change, to turn around, to give them the love, the support that they need. And that narcissist or that raging borderline, they're not going to do that. What is the motivation? You're telling them that they are powerful, that they're beautiful, that they are wanted, that they're amazing. They think they have a fail-proof strategy. I'm going to abuse this person because it makes them stay. It keeps them from abandoning me. That's what you're teaching them. You're not teaching them to treat you better. You can beg, you can cry, you can say, you hurt me. If you tell somebody this is hurting me and they go, what did I do? I don't even know what you're talking about. And they put up the blocks. They can't see themselves. They don't know what they're doing to you. How is that going to change anything? I grew up knowing a lady. She was in a situation where her husband beat her. He verbally assaulted her. He cursed her out all the time, treated her like the bottom of the shoe. And the people that were around her did everything they could to rescue her. Here's a shelter. And you know what she told them? Because she would be crying to them all the time. He did this to me. He blackened my eye. She told them it beats the heck out of being alone. And she loved this man. She was madly in love with him. And so he beat her for years until he died. It's difficult for me to watch somebody get repeatedly abused. And it's not even always somebody beating them. It's somebody who's ignoring them. You're married to somebody who ignores you. They want nothing to do with you. They don't interact. They stay away from you. They're always looking at you angrily, like you're the worst person on the planet. You haven't done anything to them. They withdraw their love because they were probably abused. So they're trying to protect themselves, all of that. What we do, we go, oh, well, they had a hard childhood. So that doesn't mean that they get to abuse you and ruin your adulthood. It seems like a lot of people who are being abused, they have a ton of excuses. And from my standpoint, it makes me look like I'm not compassionate or that I don't care or you just don't understand. I understand that you're getting abused more and more. You're unhappy. You're miserable. And that is difficult to just stand back and watch. So I think if you're watching someone being abused, you might be empathic, which means you're taking things into yourself and you're feeling them. You have to learn how to step back, allow that person the opportunity to learn and grow and figure things out. And sometimes you have to helplessly watch the person crumble. It's just like alcoholism. That person has to reach rock bottom. I mean, you can give them some advice, you can help them, you can tell them, you know what, when you're ready to get out, I'm ready to help you. I think some people have a subconscious belief that they deserve to be put down, mistreated, and abused. Most people are not going to stay and be abused. Even abusive people won't stay around and be abused. So I think some people are dutiful. They're too loyal. They say things like, I don't have the strength to find another job or fill out a resume. The person that's been in these situations for 15 years, where am I going to find time? I don't have the strength. What is my skill set? I don't know what else to do. I'm just going to go to another place and they're going to do the same thing to me. Dutiful and loyal to the wrong people, exhausted, past breaking point. I'm so sorry for what you're going through. I think I do need to do more of that for sure. I think the key is validate. I think she's correct. Validate, but you also need to protect yourself. And that's kind of the state that I'm in. I need to protect myself more from people who consistently accept abuse and complain about it, but do nothing about it. It's extremely painful for me. Even though I may seem like I'm not compassionate, it's super painful to watch. Let's look at a toxic borderline personality disorder relationship pattern that some, not all, but some borderlines and their mates get into. So borderline is triggered. They start punishing their loved one, right fighting, yelling, raging. They give the person the cold shoulder, shut the person down. I'm not speaking to you for days. Everything is great 1 minute. Then the next thing you know, they're mad, they're tantruming. So why would somebody stay in a situation where they're being traumatized? Because they want to rescue that person. They lose themselves in that other person's trauma. That is not your trauma. You don't owe it to the world to accept the abuse of anybody, narcissist or borderline. We're all sorry for everything they've had to go through, but you don't have to be the person to take it. I think borderlines can be very charming and appealing, and they can have really dynamic personalities. They can be really smart. There's a lot to love about borderlines. But when they are in that toxic state, if they're not getting help, then you don't need to, even if they are getting help, we all choose who we want to be with and who we don't want to be with. You don't owe it to anybody to take abuse from a person because of what they went through in their life. That is not your core life mission. It's not. If you want to do something about it, help somebody who's taken that next step and they've gone to a shelter, donate some canned goods or something to that organization. If you feel like you need to help and support someone, but it is not your job to be beaten down. I think if you're in a toxic abusive situation, you're gonna have to start finding some ways to fly above the radar. And any of us could end up in a situation like that. I'm not saying that any of us are better than the next person. That it could happen to anyone, but you have to figure a way out. Whether it's an escape, you have to learn how to fly above that space in your mind where you're believing that you can get out of it. So if you're in a situation in which you are being mistreated, and by the way, you don't have to have a personality disorder to be abusive, then seek help and take little teeny tiny steps, unless you're in imminent danger, to get out of the situation. And I wish you well. And if you have someone in your life who you feel is in a bad situation, be a good listener and maybe give gentle encouragements, and also protect yourself. Sometimes being a listener, but stepping back, stepping out of the situation and trusting that that person will eventually get to the space where they help themselves is good, because you also have to protect your well-being, and we can't control what other people do. So if you're in need of help with relationships or with a narcissist, you need to check out my book, both my books, and I'll put the link in the description box. And remember to subscribe. This channel is difficult to find, so if you lose it, you may not be able to find it again. So hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Love you. Bye.